I am sitting in my penthouse apartment right now watching the sunset paint Denver gold and orange through floor-to-ceiling windows. There is a glass of wine in my hand, expensive wine I bought without checking the price tag. 3 years ago, I was a different person. I was a wife who believed in forever. I was a sister who thought blood meant loyalty. I had a home in Portland, a garden I tended every weekend, 2 golden retrievers who slept at the foot of our bed. I had what I thought was everything. Then one phone call I missed changed it all. When the person you married and the person you grew up protecting both betray you, everyone expects you to crumble. They expected me to beg, to forgive, to stay small and broken. They were wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. And if you have ever had to walk away from people you loved because staying would destroy you, hit that like button. Subscribe, because what happened next, nobody saw it coming. Not even me. I met Derek in college when we were both 21. He had this easy confidence, the kind that made you feel safe. We got married when I turned 27. By the time I was 32, we had been together for 11 years, married for 5. Our life looked perfect from the outside. We had a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs of Portland with a white picket fence, literally. I worked part-time as a freelance graphic designer, mostly from home. Derek was a sales manager at a tech company. He traveled sometimes, but we made it work. We had date nights. We talked about kids. We had plans. My younger sister Stella was 29. She had always been the one who needed saving. When our mom died 7 years ago, I became the person she leaned on. Our dad Roger remarried and moved to San Diego. He called on birthdays and Christmas. That was it. So it was just me and Stella. When she went through a bad breakup that summer and lost her job as a medical assistant at the same time, I did not think twice. I told her to come stay with us. She could take her time, figure things out, get back on her feet. Derek agreed immediately. He even helped me clean out our guest room and move furniture around to make space for her. Stella moved in during September. She brought 2 suitcases and a lot of sadness. I turned the downstairs den into a temporary bedroom for her. I bought new sheets, put fresh flowers on the dresser. I wanted her to feel welcome. Derek was great about it. He said he would introduce her to some recruiters he knew. The 3 of us fell into a routine. We cooked dinner together. We watched movies on Friday nights. We took the dogs to the park on Sundays. It felt like family. It felt warm. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have them both. But then October came and little things started feeling off. Derek began coming home later than usual. He said there was a big project at work, a client demanding extra hours. I understood. His job could be stressful. Stella started going out more too. She said she was meeting friends, going shopping, trying to get out of her funk. I was happy for her. She seemed lighter, brighter. She started wearing makeup again, buying new clothes even though she did not have a job yet. I thought it was a good sign. She was healing. Derek started putting his phone face down on the table. He changed his passcode. When I asked why, he said it was a new security thing his company required. I believed him. Why would I not? He was my husband. Stella laughed more. She hummed while she made coffee in the mornings. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I should be grateful that everyone was doing well. So I planned a special dinner for that Friday. I was going to make Derek's favorite meal, open a nice bottle of wine, remind him we were still us. Then came that Wednesday afternoon in early November. I had a meeting with a client that got canceled last minute. I decided to head home early, maybe surprise Derek with lunch. When I pulled into the driveway, his car was there. That was strange. He had told me that morning he was flying to Chicago for a 2-day work trip. His suitcase had been by the door when I left. Stella's car was in the driveway too. The house was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. No music, no television, no sound of anyone moving around. I walked upstairs. I do not know why I went to our bedroom. Maybe some part of me already knew. I pushed the door open, and there they were, Derek and Stella, in my bed, on the sheets I had washed 3 days before. Time stopped. I could not breathe. I could not move. They turned and saw me. Stella's face went white. Derek said my name, but it sounded far away, like I was underwater. I stood there for 3 seconds, maybe 5. Then I said, "Get out. Both of you. Now." I turned around and walked downstairs. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold on to the railing. 30 minutes later they came down. Stella had been crying. Her mascara was smudged. Derek looked like he might throw up. He started talking. "It just happened, Nora. We never meant to." I was sitting on the couch staring at the wall. I had my phone in my hand. I was already Googling divorce lawyers. Stella kept saying she was sorry. She said she did not know how to tell me. Her voice was so small. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, but I did not. I just sat there completely still and asked one question. How long? Derek did not answer. Stella whispered, 2 months. 2 months. Since September. Since the day I opened my home to her. Since the day I gave her my guest room and my trust and my family. I laughed. It came out strange and hollow. "So since September," I said. "Since the day I let you in." Stella started crying harder. Derek tried to touch my shoulder. I stood up and walked away from him. I felt sick. I kept thinking about every moment in the past 2 months. Every time Derek said he was working late. Every time Stella said she was going shopping. Every shared glance I missed. Every lie I swallowed. The next day I called my dad. I thought maybe finally he would show up for me. He listened while I explained. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then he said, "Maybe you are overreacting, honey. People make mistakes." I felt like he had slapped me. I asked him to repeat that. He said, "Stella is still your sister. Derek is family. Think about forgiveness." I hung up. I sat on the floor of my kitchen and stared at the tiles. Then I called my Aunt Linda, my mom's younger sister. She had always been kind to me. She used to say I could call her anytime. So I did. I told her everything. I waited for her to be angry on my behalf. Instead, she sighed. "Oh, sweetie," she said, "these things happen. You do not want to destroy the family over this." I could not believe what I was hearing. "What about what they destroyed?" I asked her. She said I was young. I could move past it. She told me to think about Stella, how much she had been through, how fragile she was. Nobody asked how fragile I was. Nobody asked if I was okay. I hung up on her too. Over the next few days, mutual friends started reaching out. But they were not calling to check on me. They were calling to tell me Derek was really torn up. They asked if maybe we could work it out in therapy. One person even suggested that Stella needed me right now, that I should not abandon her. I realized something in those conversations. I was completely alone. My family chose peace over justice. They chose comfort over my pain. I was the problem for being hurt. I was the one making things difficult. That night, Derek had already moved his things to a hotel. Stella was staying with a friend. I sat in my empty house with the dogs and understood that nobody was coming to save me, so I would have to save myself. A week later, I met with a divorce attorney named Michelle. She was 50 years old with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. She asked about our finances. That is when I found out Derek had been withdrawing money from our joint account. $30,000. Gone. Over the past 2 months. I asked Michelle where it went. She pulled up bank statements, hotels, restaurants, shopping. He had been spending it on Stella, taking her to nice places, buying her things, using our money to fund his affair with my sister. I went home and opened our shared laptop. I found emails, reservation confirmations for a boutique hotel in Seattle. The same weekend, Derek told me he had a work conference. I scrolled through text messages he had forgotten to delete. She will never know. I feel bad, but I cannot stop. You make me feel alive. I closed the laptop. I called Stella and asked her to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. She showed up 20 minutes later. Her eyes were swollen. She had been crying a lot apparently. I did not feel sorry for her. I asked her one question. Why? She looked down at her hands. She said, "I do not know. It just felt right. He made me feel alive again." Then she looked at me with red eyes and said something I will never forget. "I thought you would understand. You always forgive me." That was when I realized the truth. Stella was not sorry. She was not ashamed. She was just upset that she got caught. She expected me to do what I always did. Clean up her mess. Make it okay. Sacrifice myself so she could feel better. I stood up. I looked at her and said, "You are not my sister anymore. And he is not my husband. You two deserve each other." I walked out of that coffee shop. I left her sitting there crying into her latte. That was the last time I spoke to Stella. By December, I had made my decision. I was not going to fight. I was not going to drag this out. I wanted out as fast as possible. I told Michelle to push the divorce through quickly. I agreed to split assets 50-50, even though Derek owed me money. I did not care. I just wanted it over. I signed every paper she put in front of me. It took 6 weeks to finalize. In that time, I did something I had never done before. I cut everyone off. I blocked Derek's number. I blocked Stella. I blocked my dad. I blocked Aunt Linda. I blocked every single person who had suggested I forgive, move on, think about family. I deleted my Facebook. I deleted my Instagram. I erased myself from their world. Then I put the house on the market. Derek and I had bought it together. I did not want it anymore. It sold in 6 weeks. I donated most of the furniture. I packed my clothes, my laptop, a few things that had belonged to my mom. That was it. One suitcase, one backpack. I left everything else behind. Derek sent me emails. "Can we please talk? I miss you." I ignored them. My dad left voicemails. "You are being childish, Nora. You will regret this." I deleted them without listening all the way through. Aunt Linda sent a card in the mail. "You will regret cutting off family." I threw it away. I did not respond to any of them. I did not owe them explanations. I did not owe them closure. I owed them nothing. In January, I moved to Denver. I chose it because it was 800 miles from Portland, far enough that I would not run into anyone I knew. I rented a tiny studio apartment in Capitol Hill. It was 400 square feet with one window and a bathroom the size of a closet. It was perfect. Nobody knew where I was. Nobody had my new number. I was finally alone. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. I stopped taking freelance design jobs. They were small and inconsistent, and they kept me stuck. Instead, I enrolled in an intensive digital marketing and UX design course. I studied from the moment I woke up until I went to bed. I lived off the money from selling the house. My half was $70,000. I knew it would not last forever, so I worked like my life depended on it. Because it did. I woke up at 5 in the morning every single day. I went for a run along the Cherry Creek Trail. I made myself breakfast. Then I studied. I took online courses. I watched tutorials. I rebuilt my portfolio from scratch. I did not go on dates. I did not try to meet people. I was not interested in filling the emptiness with someone new. I needed to learn how to be alone without being lonely. I started going to a yoga class on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. The instructor was a woman named Caitlin. She had bleached blonde hair and a nose ring, and she did not ask me any questions. I liked that. After class one night, she invited me to get tea. We sat in a cafe and talked about nothing important: books, travel, the weather. It was the first normal conversation I had had in months. Through Caitlin, I met other people. There was Bryn, who ran a marketing agency downtown. There was Marcus, who had just started a sustainable clothing company. They were building things. They were focused. They did not ask about my past. I did not volunteer it. We just existed in the present, and that was enough. One night, Bryn and I were having drinks after a networking event. She asked what I did. I told her I was transitioning into UX design. She looked at my portfolio on my phone right there at the bar. 2 days later, she called me. She had a project. A local outdoor gear company needed a website redesign. She asked if I wanted to freelance on it. I said yes. That project led to another and another. By July, Bryn offered me a full-time position as a senior UX designer. My salary was 3 times what I had been making with freelance graphic design. I was leading projects for Real Brands, a fintech startup, a coffee roaster expanding nationwide, a nonprofit focused on environmental conservation. I was good at it, better than I expected. I worked long hours, but I did not mind. I had something to prove, not to Derek, not to Stella, to myself. 1 year after I moved to Denver, I started my own company. I called it Nora Lane Studio. I specialized in brand identity and digital experience design. I worked out of my apartment for the first 6 months. Then I rented a small office space and hired 2 employees. My first client was a startup making sustainable fashion. They paid me $20,000 for a full rebrand. I remember looking at the contract and feeling something I had not felt in a long time. Pride. Not because of the money, because I had built this. Nobody handed it to me. Nobody felt sorry for me and gave me a break. I earned it. By the end of year 2, Nora Lane Studio had 12 employees. We worked with clients across the country, tech companies, nonprofits. Retail brands. Our revenue hit $1,200,000. I moved out of my studio apartment and into a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the Rocky Mountains. I bought furniture I loved, art that made me feel something. I adopted a cat named Olive. I learned how to play piano. I traveled alone to Iceland, Portugal, New Zealand. I did all the things I had put off because I thought I needed someone else to do them with. People started noticing my work. I was invited to speak at a design conference in Seattle. I was featured in an article about women entrepreneurs in Colorado. I got messages from strangers saying my story inspired them, but they did not know my story. Not really. They knew I had started a business. They did not know what it cost me to get there. And I liked it that way. I did not want to be defined by what happened to me. I wanted to be defined by what I did next. 3 years after I left Portland, an email appeared in my spam folder. The subject line said, "Please read this, Nora." It was from Stella. I stared at it for a long time before I opened it. The email was long. She apologized. She said she had been selfish and cruel. She told me that she and Derek had broken up after a year. He started drinking. He lost his job. She moved back to Portland and got a job doing administrative work at a dental office. She was lonely. She missed me. She wrote, "I miss you. I miss my sister. Can we please talk?" A week later, another email came. This one was from my dad. It was shorter. "I was wrong," he wrote. "I should have supported you. Can we talk?" I read both emails sitting at my desk in my office. My team was in the conference room laughing about something. The sun was coming through the windows. I closed my laptop. I did not respond to Stella. I did not respond to my dad. I was not angry. I just did not have anything to say. They were not part of my life anymore. I had moved on. They had not. In October, I flew to Seattle for a design conference. I was one of the keynote speakers. The night before my talk, I went to a coffee shop near the convention center to go over my notes. I was sitting by the window with a cappuccino when I saw someone walk past outside. I looked up. It was Derek. He looked older, thinner. He had a beard that did not suit him. His clothes were wrinkled. He glanced through the window and saw me. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then he walked inside. "Nora," he said. "Is that you?" I looked up at him and nodded. "Hello, Derek." He stood there awkwardly holding a to-go cup. He asked if he could sit down. I did not say yes, but I did not say no. He sat. He asked how I was, where I was living, what I was doing. I answered politely. Briefly, "Denver. I run a design studio." He nodded like he already knew. He said, "I heard you are doing really well. I am happy for you." His voice sounded sad. He looked like he wanted to say more. Maybe he wanted to apologize. Maybe he wanted me to forgive him. I did not ask. I finished my coffee and stood up. I have a panel to prepare for, I said. Take care, Derek. I walked out of that coffee shop. I did not look back. I did not feel angry. I did not feel sad. I felt nothing. He was just a person I used to know. That night I sat in my hotel room and thought about the woman I was 3 years ago. The one who found her husband and sister in her bed. The one who sat on her couch with shaking hands. The one who called her family and got nothing. She felt so far away now, like someone I read about in a book. I thought about all the people who told me to forgive, to stay, to think about family. I thought about how if I had listened to them I would still be in Portland, still small, still stuck, still pretending everything was fine. Cutting them off was not cruel. It was survival. Some people will drain you if you let them. Some people will take and never give back. And you do not owe them your life just because you share blood. You do not owe anyone your peace. The betrayal was not the end of my story. It was the beginning. It gave me permission to start over, to choose myself, to build something new. I did not need anyone's forgiveness to move forward. I did not need their approval. I did not need them at all. Healing was not about letting go of anger. It was about letting go of the need for them to understand. They never would. And that was okay. I was not running away anymore. I was running toward something better, toward myself. I learned that family is not who you are born to. It is who shows up when everything falls apart. It is Bryn who gave me a chance when I was nobody. It is Caitlin who invited me to tea and did not ask questions. It is Marcus who listened when I needed to talk. It is the people I chose, not the people who chose me by accident of birth. I learned that you do not need closure from people who hurt you. You just need distance. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. I learned that you do not need someone else to complete you. You were always whole. You just forgot. 3 years ago they thought I would fall apart without them. Maybe for a moment I did, but then I realized something they never understood. I did not need them to be whole. I never did. I am sitting in my penthouse now, the same one I started this story in. The sun has set. The city is glowing below me. My company is thriving. My life is full. I am not bitter. I am not broken. I am free. And that is something they will never take from me. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from people you loved because staying would have destroyed you? Have you ever chosen yourself when everyone else told you that you were being selfish? Drop a comment and tell me your story. I read every single one. If this resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe so you do not miss future stories, and share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who is standing at the edge wondering if they are strong enough to walk away. Tell them they are. Thank you for listening. I hope you find the courage to choose yourself no matter who you have to leave behind. You deserve a life that does not hurt.